Imagine walking into your dream job at one of Chicago's most prestigious churches, only to discover you've stepped into a predator's lair. Now imagine holding a secret so devastating, it could destroy not just one life, but an entire community. In 2021, a shocking case would emerge from the heart of Chicago's South Side. One that would force us to question everything we know about justice, revenge, and the fine line between victim and villain. They say revenge is a dish best served cold. But sometimes, it burns everything and everyone it touches. This is the story of how one woman's quest for justice transformed into something far darker. A calculated plot that would bring down a religious empire and leave a community questioning their faith in both God and man. But before we dive into this incredible true story, if you're new here and love deep dives into fascinating true crime cases, hit subscribe and join our True Crime Watch HD family. Let's solve these mysteries together. In the summer of 2021, New Life Baptist Church stood as a beacon of prosperity on Chicago's South Side. Its gleaming facade and state-of-the-art facilities were a testament to success. Its 3,000-seat sanctuary packed to the brim every Sunday. At the helm stood Pastor Jerome Mitchell, 45 years old, tall, athletic, with a winning smile that had graced countless local TV appearances and charity events. Alongside him was his wife Diane Mitchell, a prominent real estate developer. Together, they were the perfect power couple, held up as a shining example of black excellence in a city hungry for success stories. Their marriage seemed blessed, their ministry flourishing, their future secure. But beneath this carefully crafted image lurked a darkness that would soon explode into public view, leaving a trail of destroyed lives and shattered faith in its wake. Let me know in the comments. Have you ever encountered someone whose public image completely contradicted their private behavior? What made you first suspect something was off? Enter Melissa Jackson, a 32-year-old executive assistant who started working for Pastor Mitchell in January 2021. Smart, capable, and carrying a devastating secret, she was HIV positive, infected years earlier by a partner who never disclosed his status. As she would later tell investigators, the weight of this secret was nothing compared to the burden she would soon bear. The moment I met Pastor Mitchell, something felt wrong, Melissa later revealed. The way he looked at me, like something to consume. But I needed this job. My mother was sick, bills were piling up, and the pay was too good to walk away from. The harassment started like a slow poison. First came the comments, seemingly innocent but loaded with intent. That dress looks nice on you, Sister Jackson. You should wear your hair down more often. Has anyone ever told you what beautiful eyes you have? When Melissa tried to deflect, focusing on work instead, thank you, Pastor. I should get back to those donation reports. The situation escalated. Soon came the accidental touches, a hand on her lower back, fingers brushing her arm, standing too close while reviewing documents. Each touch a small violation, each moment another crack in her resolve. By March, Pastor Mitchell was finding reasons to keep her late at the office. Sister Jackson, I need help preparing Sunday's sermon. Could you organize these counseling files? Always with the same underlying message. No one will disturb us at this hour. Then came the night that would change everything. In his office, door closed, Pastor Mitchell made his true intentions clear. Melissa, I think we both feel this connection. God brought you here for a reason. When she tried to leave, he grabbed her arm, his mask of spiritual authority dropping completely. Think carefully about your next move. A lot of people would love this position. It would be a shame if your performance reviews started suffering. If you're finding this case as disturbing as I do, take a moment to hit that subscribe button. We have new stories every day, and trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next in this one. Trapped between her responsibilities and her dignity, Melissa tried everything by the book. She requested a transfer to the church's administrative office. Denied. Asked to adjust her hours to avoid late nights. Denied. Started documenting every interaction, saving texts, recording conversations when possible. But in a world where spiritual authority meant absolute power, the system was rigged against her. In April, he called her into his office. The fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows across his face as he delivered his verdict. I'm concerned about your attitude lately. Perhaps this isn't the right fit anymore. The threat was clear: submit or lose everything. That night, Melissa stared at her HIV medication bottle, tears streaming down her face. But these weren't tears of defeat. As she watched the streetlights flicker through her apartment window, a plan began to form. A terrible, vengeful plan that would bring this powerful man to his knees. Stay with us as we unravel how a church secretary's desperate bid for justice evolved into one of Chicago's most shocking criminal cases of 2021, and discover how a single act of revenge would expose decades of secrets hidden behind stained glass windows. That evening, as Melissa sat in her apartment contemplating her next move, she made a decision that would alter countless lives. With trembling hands, she picked up her phone and dialed Pastor Mitchell's number. "I'm sorry about yesterday," she said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "You're right. There is a connection. Maybe we could talk about it over dinner." His eager response made her stomach turn. "I knew you'd come around. I have a discreet place in mind." The restaurant was in Evanston, far from their usual circles. Pastor Mitchell had reserved a private booth under the name James Smith, the first of many deceptions that would characterize their relationship. Melissa arrived wearing the red dress he'd once complimented, every detail of her appearance calculated for maximum effect. Think about it. How far would you go to expose someone who had wronged you? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Over wine, which he shouldn't have been drinking as a Baptist minister, Pastor Mitchell laid out his rules. No communication through church channels. Never be seen together in public near the church. If anyone asked, she was rehired as a remote consultant. His wife was not to be mentioned. "I have a reputation to protect," he explained, unaware that Melissa was recording every word with a device hidden in her purse. "This stays between us." If you're invested in this story and want to see more true crime cases that expose corruption and abuse of power, hit subscribe and join our True Crime Watch HD community. Every case we cover reveals something profound about human nature. The affair began that night at a boutique hotel, but this was no ordinary liaison. Melissa had researched thoroughly. In Illinois, knowingly transmitting HIV was a Class 2 felony. She needed evidence that he initiated everything, that she had no intent to harm at first. She had documentation of his harassment and coercion. Most importantly, she had proof she tried to quit rather than submit to his advances. That night, lying awake in the hotel bed, she watched him sleep. Pastor Jerome Mitchell, pillar of the community, serial adulterer, about to learn the hardest lesson of his life. Back at her apartment, she wrote in her journal. Day 1 of the plan. Evidence secured, hotel receipt, voice recordings, text messages. He never asked about protection. Never asked about my sexual health. Just took what he wanted like he always does. Over the next weeks, a pattern emerged. Tuesday and Thursday evenings were counseling sessions. Sunday afternoons were ministry planning. His wife Diane's real estate work kept her traveling frequently, creating perfect opportunities for their meetings. Melissa played her role perfectly, the reluctant church girl who'd finally given in to temptation. She let him think he was corrupting her while she documented everything. At church, they maintained professional distance, but she noticed things now. How his eyes lingered on other young women, the private counseling sessions with single mothers, the way he used spiritual manipulation to control people. God has blessed me with discernment about you, he'd tell her in private. This is his plan for us. She thought of the other women who must have heard those same lines over the years. June arrived with complications. Diane Mitchell started spending more time at church, watching her husband with suspicious eyes. Rumors spread about why Melissa had really returned to her job. One Sunday, Diane cornered her in the ladies' room. "I've seen how he looks at you," Diane said, her voice tight with anger. Before Melissa could respond, Diane delivered a chilling warning. "You're not the first. Just know this, I built half of what he has. I'm not going anywhere." That night, Melissa called her cousin Rachel, a nurse who knew her HIV status. "I'm in too deep," she confessed. "You need to stop this madness," Rachel urged. "He's not worth destroying your life over." "He already tried to destroy my life," Melissa replied. "Tried to force me into this." Now he needs to learn actions have consequences. Meanwhile, Pastor Mitchell grew bolder, more reckless. Late-night calls, explicit texts, demanding more of her time. His ego convinced him he was untouchable. After a Wednesday Bible study, he made his riskiest demand yet. "My wife's going to a conference next week," he said, eyes gleaming. "Come to the house." "Your house? Isn't that risky?" Melissa asked, already recording. "I want you in my bed. I'm tired of hotels." "What about pictures, security cameras?" His response was everything she needed. "Disable them myself. No one will know." She saved that text, another piece of evidence in her growing collection. The next day, Melissa had lunch with her mother, who was recovering from cancer. "Baby, you seem troubled lately," her mother said. "Talk to me." Melissa forced a smile. "Just work stress, Mama. Everything's fine." But nothing was fine. The weight of her revenge plot was crushing her spirit. Yet every time she considered stopping, she remembered his threats, his entitlement, his abuse of power. "God works in mysterious ways," Pastor Mitchell liked to say. Indeed, he did. And soon, those mysteries would begin to unravel in ways no one could have predicted. Stay with us as we explore what happens when revenge meets divine retribution, and a plan set in motion starts to claim its first victims. The summer heat of 2021 matched the intensity of what was unfolding at New Life Baptist Church. Pastor Mitchell, drunk on power and desire, grew increasingly reckless. But something else was beginning to change. Subtle shifts that only Melissa, with her terrible knowledge, could truly understand. It started with fatigue during their encounters. Night sweats that left his sheets damp. A persistent low fever that made him irritable. "Must be that summer flu going around," he'd say, popping Tylenol like candy. But Melissa watched and documented every symptom with clinical detachment. If you've been following this story and want to see more deep dives into cases that expose corruption in trusted institutions, consider subscribing to True Crime Watch HD. Our community thrives on uncovering the truth, no matter how uncomfortable it might be. The symptoms kept mounting. Swollen lymph nodes he blamed on stress, body aches dismissed as gym soreness, low-grade fevers attributed to Chicago's heat wave. Each excuse, each denial, carefully noted in Melissa's growing collection of evidence. She watched him deteriorate with the patience of someone who had walked this path before. What would you do if you discovered someone you trusted was slowly destroying lives? Share your thoughts in the comments below. During this time, the power dynamic began to shift. As his health declined, Pastor Mitchell needed Melissa more, trusted her more. She became his confidant, the keeper of his secrets. "Sometimes I think you're the only one who really knows me," he told her one night, unaware of the bitter irony in his words. At church, the changes became impossible to ignore. His dynamic sermons grew shorter. He took more breaks, drank more water. The congregation whispered about his gaunt appearance. "Pastor's working too hard. That new diet is too extreme. He needs a vacation." But Diane Mitchell knew better. Melissa overheard her confronting him in his office one evening. "Jerome, something's wrong. You need to see a doctor." "I'm fine, woman. Stop nagging." By September, the symptoms were undeniable. During one of their hotel meetings, he could barely perform, his body racked with chills. Melissa, playing her role perfectly, suggested medical help. "Maybe we should take you to the ER?" "No hospitals," he insisted. "Just need rest." That night, she made another entry in her journal. "The virus is taking hold. He's experiencing classic acute HIV symptoms but refuses to acknowledge anything's wrong. His pride will be his downfall." Meanwhile, church politics intensified. Associate Pastor Marcus Thompson started handling more services. The deacon board called emergency meetings. Attendance numbers dropped slightly. People could sense something was off with their leader. But inside, Melissa was struggling. The weight of her actions haunted her during Sunday services, during their intimate moments, during quiet nights alone with her thoughts. She attended HIV support group meetings, sharing carefully edited versions of her story. "I'm watching someone experience what I went through," she told the group, "but I can't help them." The group leader, an older woman named Miss Clara, seemed to see right through her. Revenge might feel sweet at first, baby, but it poisons the soul. September brought the moment everything would change. During a televised sermon, Pastor Mitchell nearly collapsed at the pulpit. The video went viral in Chicago's church community. Diane finally put her foot down. Either you see a doctor, or I'm calling one to the house. He chose a private clinic in the Gold Coast, far from prying eyes. Melissa knew what would happen next. She'd planned for it meticulously. The call came on a Tuesday evening. I need to see you. It's urgent. His voice sounded broken, defeated. The private room at Northwestern Memorial Hospital felt small despite its luxury accommodations. Pastor Mitchell sat on the edge of his bed in a designer robe, medical charts scattered around him. His usual commanding presence had crumbled. HIV positive, he said, voice hollow. How is this possible? I'm a man of God. This doesn't happen to men of God. She watched him spiral through the stages of denial in real time. The tests are wrong. Someone at the lab made a mistake. This is spiritual warfare. The devil is attacking me. Finally, the question she'd been waiting for. You need to get tested. Melissa pulled out her phone, displaying the HIV test results she'd gotten the previous week. Another piece of evidence showing she'd been responsible enough to get checked. Negative, she said. I'm clean. His relief was visible, followed immediately by suspicion. Then how? She watched the wheels turn in his mind as he mentally scrolled through other possibilities. Other women. Because, of course, there were other women. But the night was far from over. As Melissa stood in the hallway, Diane Mitchell arrived at the hospital. What happened next would throw everyone's carefully constructed plans into chaos. Stay with us as we uncover how one woman's quest for revenge would spiral into a criminal investigation that would shake Chicago's religious community to its core. That night at Northwestern Memorial Hospital, the carefully constructed facade of New Life Baptist Church began to crumble. Melissa listened outside the private room as Diane Mitchell confronted her husband of 20 years. What do you mean HIV? Diane's voice cracked with emotion. Jerome, I've been faithful for 20 years. Diane, please. Don't you dare lie to me. Not now. How many were there? I don't. How many? The argument continued until security asked Diane to lower her voice. She stormed out, mascara streaking her face, nearly running into Melissa in the hallway. Here to check on your pastor? Diane's voice dripped venom. Little late for office hours, isn't it? What happened next would change everything. Diane moved closer, her words precise and deadly. But here's what you don't know. I've had private investigators following Jerome for months. Every hotel, every lunch date, every counseling session. I have pictures. That night, sitting in her car with shaking hands, Melissa called her cousin Rachel. The wife knows about the affair, has proof. Jesus, Mel, this is getting dangerous, Rachel warned. You need a lawyer. If I lawyer up now, it looks suspicious. But events were already spiraling beyond anyone's control. The next few days brought chaos. Pastor Mitchell checked out of the hospital against medical advice. Emergency deacon board meetings ran late into the night. Diane moved out of their mansion into a downtown condo. Church attendance plummeted as rumors spread. Then came the headlines. Prominent Southside pastor steps down amid health and scandal rumor. Mega church in crisis. Pastor's illness raises question. Diane Mitchell files for divorce, cites irreconcilable differences. If this case is showing you a new side of how power and corruption can hide in plain sight, make sure to subscribe to True Crime Watch HD. We dig deep into cases that others won't touch. The police became involved after Diane filed a criminal complaint alleging intentional HIV transmission. Detective Marcus Williams from Chicago PD's Special Victims Unit took the lead. A veteran investigator with 25 years on the force, Williams had handled sensitive cases in the black community before. He knew churches could be powder kegs of secrets. His first interview was with Diane Mitchell. When did you first suspect your husband was unfaithful? Suspect. Diane laughed bitterly. I've known for years. Jerome got sloppy, lipstick stains, late nights, mysterious charges. But I built this life with him. Leaving meant losing everything we'd worked for. And now someone tried to kill him with HIV. That changes things. Williams reviewed the private investigator's files. The surveillance photos showed Pastor Mitchell with multiple women over 6 months, but Melissa appeared most frequently. Next, he interviewed church staff. The pattern became clear: young, attractive women hired as assistants or ministry coordinators, lasting a few months before quietly leaving. Former Secretary Janet Thompson broke down during questioning. He said God gave him special anointing to minister to broken women. Said physical comfort was part of healing. I was divorced, vulnerable. When I threatened to tell, he said no one would believe me over a man of God. Williams compiled a list of potential victims. Janet Thompson, 2018. Kimberly Peters, 2019. Angela Wilson, 2020. Melissa Jackson, 2021. Plus at least 5 others who refused to talk. But Melissa stood out. She was the only one who returned after leaving, the only one present during the HIV diagnosis, the only one still working closely with Pastor Mitchell. The detective's interview with Melissa at the station proved revealing. Miss Jackson, why did you return to work for Pastor Mitchell after resigning? Melissa stayed calm. He offered better terms. I had bills to pay. Including private meetings at hotels? I'm not sure what you're implying. We have photos, Miss Jackson. The Hyatt, Drake, his house. She leaned forward. Do you have photos of him threatening my job? Of him cornering me in his office? Or just the parts that make me look like a homewrecker? The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Rachel, Melissa's cousin, couldn't live with the guilt anymore. She walked into Detective Williams' office early one November morning. I have information about Pastor Mitchell's HIV infection. Williams leaned forward. I'm listening. Rachel's hands shook as she spoke. My cousin Melissa, she's been positive since 2017. She told me about Pastor Mitchell harassing her, threatening her job. When she went back to work for him, she knew what she was doing. The search warrant was executed at Melissa's apartment while she was at church. What detectives found would shock even the most seasoned investigators. 5 notebooks detailing the affair, recorded conversations on USB drives, a folder of hotel receipts, screenshots of text messages, and most damning of all, Pastor Mitchell's medical timeline meticulously documented. From her personal journal. April 15, 2021. He fired me today for refusing him. Thinks he can throw me away like trash, but I have something for him. A gift that keeps on giving. May 3, 2021. Started the plan today. He's so eager, so careless. Never even asked about protection. His arrogance will be his downfall. Stay with us as we reveal how this explosive case would come to its shocking conclusion, and how justice isn't always what it seems. As the investigation deepened, Detective Williams arranged surveillance on Melissa. She seemed to sense the net tightening, changing her routine, switching cars with friends, making calls from burner phones. But it was too late. The evidence was mounting, and a shocking pattern was emerging. Anonymous letters began appearing in the church office. Sister Jackson has HIV. Check the secretary's medical records. She did this on purpose. The church community was fracturing, with some defending Pastor Mitchell while others celebrated his downfall. But the case was about to take another unexpected turn. Angela Wilson, another former victim of Pastor Mitchell, stepped forward with a revelation that would change everything. Melissa told me her plan last spring, Angela testified. I didn't stop her. Maybe that makes me guilty too, but after what he did to me, to all of us, I understood. Did she specifically mention infecting him? She said, he thinks HIV is punishment for sin. Let's test that theory. Before we reveal what happened next in this incredible case, if you're finding value in these deep dives into true crime cases that expose corruption and abuse of power, consider joining our True Crime Watch HD family by hitting subscribe. The district attorney's office prepared charges. The evidence was substantial: Rachel's testimony, the journals, medical records, surveillance photos, witness statements, recorded conversations. But the case was sensitive: a prominent black pastor, a violated woman's revenge. The racial and gender politics were explosive. What do you think about cases where the victim becomes the perpetrator? Share your thoughts in the comments below. They arrested Melissa after Sunday service, waiting until she left church grounds to avoid a scene. Her only response was a sad smile. "I wondered when you'd figure it out." The charges were formal. 1 count aggravated assault. 1 count criminal transmission of HIV. 1 count reckless conduct. But as the case moved toward trial, more women came forward with stories spanning decades. More importantly, they revealed something crucial: other HIV exposures. Kimberly Peters testified, "He infected me in 2019. I was too ashamed to report it." Angela Wilson added, "I tested positive 6 months after our affair ended in 2020. The timeline suddenly blurred. Had Melissa infected Pastor Mitchell, or had he already been positive, infecting her and others? DNA testing of the virus could prove transmission direction, but samples from 2017 weren't available. The scientific evidence was inconclusive. Pastor Mitchell's health stabilized with proper treatment. He held a press conference. "I admit my sins. I failed as a husband, a pastor, and a man of God. But I never intended to harm anyone. What Sister Jackson did was calculated evil." But Melissa's support group rallied around her. Miss Clara spoke to reporters. "That man preyed on wounded women for years. The real crime is how long the church protected him." The trial opened on a cold Chicago morning. News vans lined South Martin Luther King Drive. Protesters carried signs on both sides. "Justice for victim. HIV is not a weapon. Church corruption kill. Pray for Pastor Mitchell." The prosecution's timeline unraveled under scrutiny. If Mitchell had infected others in 2019 and 2020, he couldn't have gotten HIV from Melissa in 2021. The journals remained damaging, but without clear transmission evidence, reasonable doubt grew. After 4 days of deliberation, the verdict came: not guilty on all counts. The aftermath rippled through Chicago's black church community. New Life Baptist split, with half the congregation following Associate Pastor Thompson to a new ministry. Diane Mitchell's divorce settled out of court. The church board resigned en masse. Multiple civil suits ended in confidential settlements. Pastor Mitchell moved to Atlanta, starting a restoration ministry. Melissa left Chicago for Milwaukee, seeking a fresh start. Her final journal entry read, "The truth is messy. We were all victims and villains. He destroyed lives with his abuse. I wanted revenge but found only emptiness. May God forgive us all." This case became a powerful reminder of how power, sexuality, and accountability intersect in religious spaces. It raised difficult questions about justice, revenge, and the true nature of redemption. Perhaps Miss Clara said it best: "Revenge poisons everyone it touches." Today, New Life Baptist Church stands as a shadow of its former self. Its story serves as a cautionary tale about the destructive power of secrets, the complexity of justice, and the high price of revenge. If you found this story as compelling as we have, make sure to subscribe to True Crime Watch HD for more in-depth investigations into cases that challenge our understanding of justice and human nature. Until next time, remember, sometimes the most dangerous predators hide behind the most respected positions, and sometimes justice comes in unexpected forms.